Picture this, okay? You're sitting across this tiny cafe table from someone totally new. You're wearing that shirt you really like. The lighting is actually decent for once, and you just ordered your drink.
Right, the stage is set.
Exactly. You're hoping for sparks. You want that effortless, movie-like banter, but instead, the conversation accidentally morphs into something that just feels um, so painfully stiff.
Oh, yeah. We all know that feeling.
Right. The person across from you just leans forward, makes this intense eye contact, and delivers the dreaded rapid-fire checklist. Like, where are you from? What do you do? What are you looking for?
It's brutal.
It is. It's delivered with the exact tone of an HR recruiter who's just desperately trying to fill a mid-level management position. Honestly, the only thing missing from this scenario is, like, you sliding a freshly printed 2-page resume right across the table.
Yeah, the air just completely gets sucked out of the room when that happens. I mean, the moment the conversational rhythm shifts into this sort of data collection mode, the brain's social playfulness just shuts down entirely.
Right. Like you're instantly on the defensive.
Exactly. Any potential for romance or a genuine connection is just instantly replaced by this heavy feeling of performance evaluation.
Well, welcome to this deep dive for Modern Connection Lab. This is deep dive number 4, and we are unpacking first date questions that actually open people up.
Which is such a crucial topic.
It really is. Our mission for today's deep dive is highly practical. We're looking at how you can build dating confidence entirely without playing games.
Yeah, we're talking about the actual mechanics of creating ease and curiosity, how to do that without ever making the person sitting across from you feel like they're undergoing some kind of rigorous compatibility exam.
So, okay, let's unpack this, because before we figure out what to ask, we kind of need to understand why so many dates feel like exhausting interrogations in the first place.
Right. And to get there, we really have to look closely at the underlying psychology of why we ask the questions we do. I mean, when two strangers sit down together, there is this baseline level of anxiety. It's just natural.
Oh, for sure. Your heart's beating a little faster. You're overthinking your posture.
Exactly. And the human brain naturally seeks certainty to alleviate that anxiety, right? So people just default to these standard culturally approved scripts to quickly figure out who is sitting across from them.
The resume questions.
Yeah. But the problem is those scripts usually just sound like interrogations. Good first date questions are invitations, not interrogations. That's a core concept here. They should be easy doorways, little story prompts.
Okay, wait, I have to push back a little here. Because I sit down with my latte, and suddenly I feel like I don't know, a 19th century census taker just logging raw demographic data. Like I completely forget how to be a normal human. But isn't the entire point of a first date to find out if you're actually compatible?
Well, sure, eventually.
So how do we figure that out without asking the big, heavy demographic questions like, don't I need to know these things?
What's fascinating here is that we fundamentally misunderstand the purpose of that very first meeting. I mean, first dates are not auditions for a life partner.
Okay, what are they then?
They are, at their core, vibe checks. They're fueled by curiosity, not data analysis. You really do not need to extract a comprehensive psychological profile over one cup of coffee.
Thank goodness, because that sounds exhausting.
Right. You simply need to create an environment where the other person's personality feels safe enough to show up. I mean, compatibility actually reveals itself in how the two of you interact. How you handle silence, how you pivot through topics.
You're not just in the raw data of their answers.
Exactly, not the raw data.
Okay, so the questions we ask are really just tools to build that welcoming environment. They're invitations. That is a massive paradigm shift for a lot of people, I think.
It changes everything about how you approach the conversation.
So if the goal is just to invite them into the space, how do we actually structure our conversation to do that? Because, let's be real, winging it clearly leads us straight back to the HR recruiter voice.
Yeah, winging it usually backfires. The most reliable framework we're looking at today operates in 3 distinct phases. And it's super simple. It's light, specific, and follow.
Light, specific, follow. Okay, let's break those down. Starting with light, I imagine this is just about lowering the stakes right away.
It is entirely about emotional safety. I mean, early conversations desperately need a baseline of safety before they can handle any real depth. If you come in heavy with a complex question about, like, their childhood or their 5-year plan,
They just freeze up.
right, You trigger a defensive, highly calculated response. So a light question demands absolutely zero emotional labor. It's just a soft toss.
Like, what's been the best part of your week so far? Or what is your most reliable comfort meal? Things like that.
Those are perfect, yeah. They're low stakes, but they inherently invite a positive or at least a relatable memory. And once the nervous system registers that it's not under threat, that there are no wrong answers, then you can move to the second phase, which is specific.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. Because when we look at the cognitive psychology behind how people converse, broad, vague questions actually cause a ton of panic.
Oh, absolutely. They're overwhelming.
Right. If someone sits down and says, "So tell me about yourself," or "What are you into?" my brain instantly just goes totally blank. It's this massive cognitive load. I have to scan my entire life history, figure out what's socially acceptable to share with this stranger, and then format it into a neat summary, all in like 3 seconds.
We call that the blank canvas paralysis. When you give someone a totally blank canvas, they just freeze. Specific questions, on the other hand, they provide this concrete handle for the brain to grab onto.
Okay, so give me an example of a good handle.
So instead of asking, what are you into? You could ask, what is a place in this city you think is wildly underrated? Or what is something you could talk about for 20 minutes with absolutely no prep?
Oh, I love that 20-minute presentation question. It's such a clever bypass. It completely avoids this standard, "What are your hobbies?" trap.
Exactly. Because what are your hobbies usually just gets you a list, right? Hiking, movies, hanging out with friends.
Yeah, the generic dating app profile answers. But with the 20-minute question, you get to hear about, like, their weird obsession with espresso machine mechanics or, medieval history.
And notice the emotional shift there. You are no longer asking for a demographic fact. You're actually asking them to access a state of enthusiasm.
Which is way more attractive anyway.
Exactly. And once they grab that specific handle and share their enthusiasm, you enter the third phase, follow.
And see, follow seems to be where a lot of dates actually fall apart. Like, you can ask a genuinely great specific question, but if you don't do anything with the answer, it still feels like a checklist.
Right. It feels transactional.
Like, say I asked a specific question, and they mention they absolutely love Sunday farmers markets. The mechanical interview-style response is to just nod, say cool, and then immediately pivot to, "So how long have you lived in the city?"
Yeah, that pivot is the sound of connection just dying on the vine. I mean, you asked them to open a door, they actually opened it, and you just walked right past it without looking inside.
So how do we walk through the door?
The follow requires you to actually notice the detail they offered and explore it. So you take the Sunday market answer and you ask, oh, nice. What is your mandatory first stop coffee, flowers, or the food stalls? You are demonstrating that their words actually have an impact on you.
Which brings up a much larger issue with the mechanics of a date. Because even if you use the light, specific follow framework flawlessly, the interaction can still feel totally clinical if the underlying rhythm of the conversation is off.
Oh, the rhythm is everything. And we naturally fall into this trap of question stacking.
Question stacking, yeah.
It's the hallmark of what we call the anti-interview rule. Because when people get nervous, they try to carry the conversation by just firing off inquiries. Where did you go to school? Did you like it? Do you go back often?
It's like you're pinging them. It forces the other person into this perpetual state of answering.
Right. And it creates this really strange power dynamic. One person becomes the evaluator holding the metaphorical clipboard, and the other person becomes the applicant just sweating under the spotlight.
So how do we break that rhythm? Because it's such an easy trap to fall into when you're nervous.
You break it by introducing mutuality. And you do that through a very specific sequence. The healthy conversational rhythm goes like this: question, answer, reaction, small self-disclosure, and then follow-up.
Okay, let's run a scenario with that sequence, just to ground it. Suppose I ask, what is your ideal, completely low-pressure Sunday? And they answer, honestly, a strong cup of coffee and hiding in a bookstore.
Okay, good start.
Now, instead of firing off another question immediately, I pause. I give a reaction and a small self-disclosure. I might say, oh, that is a highly respectable Sunday. I completely get the bookstore vibe, though I'm usually a coffee and a long walk person. I have to be moving. And then I deploy the follow-up. So what kind of bookstore are we talking about here? Like the tiny chaotic ones where books are stacked to the ceiling, or the clean modern ones?
See, that is perfect. By inserting your own preference for the coffee and a long walk, you have entirely leveled the playing field. You basically stepped out from behind the interviewer's desk and actually entered the conversational space with them.
Without making it all about me.
Exactly. The small self-disclosure rule is key. You're participating, You're making yourself visible, but you aren't hijacking their story.
It really changes the whole texture of the interaction. Like going back to the comfort meal example. If you ask about it and they say ramen, relating to them is so easy. You just drop in respect. Mine is grilled cheese and tomato soup because apparently my emotional palate peaked at age 6.
That's great. It adds a layer of humor, it shows your personality, and most importantly, it gives them something to react to. It builds a shared reality.
Yeah. But, once you've established that shared reality, you face the challenge of sustaining the momentum without getting stuck in small talk forever. And this is where we apply the concept of the follow-up ladder.
Yeah, the follow-up letter. This maps out how a conversation actually deepens over time. It's got 3 rungs. Level 1 is clarify, level 2 is story, and level 3 is meaning.
Talk to us about the differences between those.
So level 1, clarify, is just the basic logistics, like what kind, where was that, when did you go? Then level 2, story, moves from logistics to narrative. So you ask what made that trip so memorable, or how did you end up getting into that hobby in the first place?
And then level 3 is meaning.
Right. Level 3 is the core. What do you love most about doing that? Or what does that give you at the end of the day?
See, I have to confess something here. My natural instinct is to just bypass the small talk entirely. Like, I want to jump straight to level 3. I want to know the deep underlying meaning of their life choices by the time the appetizers arrive.
A lot of people do. It feels efficient.
Yeah, but why is bypassing the ladder actually a bad strategy?
Because unearned depth triggers an entirely different kind of defense mechanism. When you ask someone for a profound, meaning-level answer before you've established baseline trust, you aren't creating intimacy. You're actually demanding vulnerability.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
It feels invasive, right? Like you're trying to shortcut the actual process of getting to know them. You have to climb the ladder organically. You start by clarifying the details, move into the narrative of the story, and then only if the environment feels warm and reciprocal, then you explore the meaning.
You have to earn the depth. That is a vital reality check for me.
Mm-hmm.
So to help us actually execute this without overthinking, we can categorize our conversational tools. We're not just blindly grasping for topics. We actually have specific types of prompts designed to lower the stakes.
Right. We can group these into a few really reliable categories. The first is the low-pressure story question. You want to invite a narrative, but you keep the emotional stakes incredibly small.
Give us an example of that.
Asking something like, what is a tiny hill you will happily die on? Or, what is a ridiculously small thing that made you happy this week?
Oh, I use the tiny hill question frequently.
Yeah.
And it is amazing to watch people's posture just physically shift. It gives them permission to be passionately opinionated about something utterly absurd, like why deep dish pizza is actually a casserole, not a pizza.
Yes, exactly. It completely bypasses that serious screening process we naturally put up. Another highly effective category involves preference questions that reveal personality.
Okay, how does that work?
You're asking for a simple choice, but the choice illustrates how they regulate themselves. For instance, what is your ultimate comfort show when your brain is completely fried? Or are you more of a museum person or a food market person?
I love that because it tells you so much about their downtime without asking them to, formally define their lifestyle.
Right, it's subtle.
Then there's the playful would you rather category. Things like, would you rather have perfect 72-degree weather every weekend for the rest of your life or never have to wait in a single line again?
These work incredibly well because they force a lighthearted cognitive pivot. The brain stops analyzing the date and starts solving this ridiculous puzzle. It organically generates banter and playful debate.
Okay, the fourth category is a bit more nuanced. Gentle values questions. This is critical because, we all want to know if our values align. But if you literally ask, what are your core life values? Oh, you sound like a life coach.
Yeah, please don't ask that.
So how do we ask about values through the lens of ordinary life?
You observe their values by asking how they allocate their resources, right? Their time, their energy, their boundaries. So instead of asking about values directly, you ask, what makes a weekend feel genuinely well spent to you? Or what is something you found yourself getting much more picky about as you've gotten older?
Oh, that second one is brilliant because it touches on boundaries and personal growth, but is framed in a highly accessible way. And then the final category is bait-specific questions. This is simply using your immediate physical environment to anchor the conversation in the present moment.
Yeah, use what's around you. If you're looking at a menu together, you just ask, are you a meticulous menu planner who researches beforehand, or do you panic decide when the waiter arrives?
I'm definitely a panic decider, for the record.
See, and that utilizes the shared context to spark an observation about how you navigate the world.
It's so much more natural. So with these categories in mind, let's do a little question surgery. Let's take some of the most common, culturally ingrained, yet terribly stiff dating questions and surgically alter them to actually work.
Let's do it.
The most obvious offender is, what do you do? Everyone asks it.
Everyone asks it, but the problem with what do you do is that it just asks for a resume bullet point. To fix it, you shift the focus from the title to the experience.
So what's the better version?
You ask, what is the least boring part of your work? Or, what is a problem you actually enjoy solving in your job? You're asking for an emotion or an opinion attached to their career rather than just the job description.
Oh, that's way better. What about the trend of asking about red flags? People love to sit down and ask, so what are your biggest red flags in a relationship?
Oh, that immediately turns the date into a defensive audit. You're essentially asking a total stranger to itemize their trauma or their rigid demands.
Yikes. So what's the surgical fix?
The fix is to pivot towards self-awareness and growth. Like we mentioned earlier, you ask, what is something you've gotten more picky about as you've gotten older? It gets at the exact same concept, what they avoid and what they value, but it frames it around their evolution, not their flaws.
That's such a crucial distinction. Let's do one more. Sometimes people swing the pendulum way too far and go way too heavy, asking things like, what is your deepest fear?
Asking for a deepest fear on a first date literally violates the follow-up ladder we just discussed. It demands level 3, meaning instantly.
So how do we scale that back?
The fix is to scale the emotional weight way down. You ask, what is something small that used to stress you out terribly, but doesn't bother you at all anymore? It still invites a conversation about anxiety and growth, but keeps the stakes manageable.
To ensure you don't accidentally slip into these heavy or stiff questions, you can run a quick internal diagnostic. We call it the date vibe test.
Yes, the date vibe test is essential.
Before the words leave your mouth, just run the question through 3 rapid checks. 1, is it genuinely easy to answer? 2, does it invite a story or clear preference? And 3, would I be completely comfortable answering it myself?
And that third check is really the anchor. If you would feel put on the spot or evaluated by the question, do not ask it. Mutuality is the goal here. If a question fails those 3 checks, you either soften its edges with a surgical fix or you simply hold it back for date number 3 or 4.
The date vibe test is great for saving a conversation, but there are some questions that no amount of vibe testing can save. Those are the absolute dead ends.
Oh yes, the avoid list.
Right, so what does this all mean for the do not ask list? At the very top of this list is the classic, why are you still single?
Yeah, please just strike that from your vocabulary. People often deploy that phrase thinking it functions as a compliment. They mean it as, you're so fantastic, how has the market not scooped you up?
But it never lands that way, does it?
Psychologically, it rarely lands that way. It implicitly pathologizes their independence, it forces the other person to justify their relationship status, and it immediately puts them in a defensive posture.
We also covered the red flags question, which turns the table into an interrogation room. But another really common trap is asking, what are you looking for? Right out of the gate.
Right. And look, it is entirely valid to want alignment on relationship goals, but timing is everything. Asking it in the first 20 minutes feels like you're asking them to sign a contract. It carries the heavy energy of a screening process.
So if you really need a read on their mindset early on, how do you do it?
You soften the approach immensely. You can casually ask, what has the dating experience been like for you lately? This invites them to share their perspective without committing to a definitive outcome with you.
That's a great reframe. Other major conversational black holes include literally any questions about exes or past relationship trauma. We cannot stress this enough. Do not ask for or offer heavy emotional disclosure before a foundation of trust has actually been built.
It's just way too much, too soon.
And finally, avoid rapid-fire career questions. Asking about their industry, their commute, their boss, and their 5-year plan back-to-back ensures the date feels indistinguishable from a networking mixer.
And all of these dead ends share a common flaw. They attempt to extract certainty from a situation that is inherently uncertain. And when you focus on extracting data, you destroy the environment.
Which brings us to the core synthesis of our deep dive today. Let's lock in the 5 major takeaways so you can actually use this. Number 1, good first date questions are invitations, not interrogations.
Number 2, rely on the light, T-specific, to follow framework, to bypass conversational freezing.
Number 3, Actively disrupt the interview mode by ensuring you include your own reactions and small self-disclosures.
Number 4, remember that how you follow up on an answer matters significantly more than delivering the perfect opening line.
And number 5, prioritize ease and safety first. The profound depth and meaning will naturally follow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how humans connect, what if the primary goal of a first date isn't actually to get the other person to like you?
Wait, what?
Think about it. What if the goal is simply to observe what kind of conversational environment the two of you naturally construct when the pressure to perform is completely removed? When you finally drop the clipboard and throw away the checklist, you actually get to see how your two distinct personalities breathe and interact in a shared space.
Wow, that entirely shifts the weight of dating. It's no longer a pass-fail test. It's an experiment in shared environments. I love that. We want to hear how this lands with you all. Drop a comment below with the number that corresponds to the specific part of first date conversations that feels the most difficult for you right now.
Let us know where you get stuck.
Yeah, so is it number 1, starting the conversation with the first place? Number 2, avoiding those brutal, awkward silences? Number 3, formulating better, more specific questions? Or number 4, knowing exactly when and how to transition into deeper topics? Leave your number in the comments.
We read all of them, so definitely chime in.
And be sure to join us for our next deep dive. Green flags people miss in early dating. We'll be looking at the highly subtle signs of emotional maturity and consistency that almost everyone overlooks because they're too blinded by chasing the high of intense chemistry.
That is going to be a good one.
It really is. But for tonight, remember the core mission. Leave the HR recruiter voice at the office. Let the conversation breathe. Keep your resume off the table, and just see what kind of environment you can build together.